Good evening and welcome back. Over the summer, we took a pre-fi hiatus, enjoyed the vacations, and since we've been back, we've been sharing some more of our information. First and foremost, thank you to everybody that has been getting engaged and following along and have been asking a lot of questions about the inner workings of our district. As we move forward, you're going to see that we're going to get deeper into the dive into the actual operations behind our district as well as continue our financial look. Recently, I had a lot of people over the last couple of weeks who I've run into, and they asked me, what's been the reaction, and as I continue to move forward with this, and the reaction has been very positive to the information that we're sharing, not the information itself, but the fact that it's actually being shared and being discussed. If you haven't had a chance to review some of the most recent blog entries, I would highly encourage you to do that. Now, why is this work important? Why do I continue to do this? Why is it that this team continues to grow and more people get involved? It comes down to three things: students, teachers, and community. Many of us that are involved in this project and continue to look to drive change within our district will get no personal gain from this. If anything, it's hard work. We're not going to get recognized. We're not going to be held up by anybody and say, hey, great job, cheer, cheer. But what we are going to get is we're going to get a better education for our children. And if you haven't, as I said before, looked at some of the most recent entries, really look at how we spend our money. And we're really starting to correlate between the money that's being spent and what are we getting for our money. Remember, this is taxpayer money. This is public money. We are the ones that put the money in here. And are we actually getting out of it what we should or what we look to? When you look at the role of the board is to carry out the wishes of the community, representative government. That's how it works. What I've seen over the last couple of months, and I've heard some not such great stories that continue to motivate me, as regards to some things that are being said about people in our community. Things are being said about our teachers and our educators from people that really shouldn't and should know better. I know for myself that it was very disappointing over the summertime. Not the things that happened to me, being verbally attacked at a meeting of citizens that were looking to see how we could better work with the board. Completely unnecessary, but apparently there was a conversation with a board member the day before in which some very unkind things were said. That's fine. That's kind of the nature of the beast. But when relatives are cornered at grocery stores, people try to discredit people that are related to you that have nothing to do with what we're doing. That just seems to be a desperate maneuver. Is our focus really on our students? Should be. Or is it on self-preservation? I don't know. I'll let you be the judge. As you know, as the budget get turned down back in June, it was amazing to see the power that apparently I had as I was blamed for the budget going down. Well, if any of you know me, I was actually in North Carolina spending time with my family. Come around August, it was disappointing that less than 10% of the registered voters in Hamden voted, so we pretty much rubber stamped a budget that increased tax dollars and decreased services to our students by eliminating teaching positions. If you really take a deep dive into our finances, it's very interesting to see how our money is actually being handled and what is being allowed to happen. But more about that later. We have students in our community, and I'll continue to talk about this, that aren't getting the services that they need. And I was recently very motivated by a post by my sister-in-law from down in Florida. I have a nephew named Jack who is just an incredible kid. He'll make you smile. He's intelligent, he's motivated, he's energetic, he is a normal kid except for the fact that he was born with Down syndrome. Because of that, he has been labeled. Because of that, he has experienced being pigeonholed. Luckily for him, he has two advocates, my brother and my sister-in-law, that have done tireless research, studied the laws, have been involved in the schools, have been willing to move him to where he needs to be. And through all of their work and their energy and the dedication, some very positive updates as far as what's happening with him and his education. And lo and behold, as he's gotten the services that he needs, and he's being treated like the child that he is, he's starting to thrive. I tell you this story not because I want you to think, wow, another Jason story or a story about my brother and sister-in-law, but I want to everybody realize the power of change and the power of engagement and the power that we have to change the lives of every single student in our community. We have a choice with a couple thousand students that we have here, and I started to make a list the other day of all the students that I know, and I was leaving off the last names because I didn't, confidentiality. I don't want people to be linked to me. Who knows what kind of consequence that could be. I've heard about some of the experiences people have had just because they're friends of mine. But beside that, the list was very long, and I feel a responsibility every one of those students. I really do. I convinced my family, as I said before, to move here to Hamden for the education. I stand by that. But students, teachers, and educators, I really, really want my daughters to take Latin at Hamden Academy from Benjamin Johnson. We have one of the greatest Latin programs in the country. We have a recognized Latin program. You might not hear a ton about it, but when you think about over 10% of the students at Hamden Academy are involved in a Latin club, I believe, if I remember the stats correctly. What a fantastic teacher. What an influence it's having on our students. When you think about foreign languages, and you think if someone knows Latin, the Romance languages become much easier. It's a basic foundation. It's a desire for education. I really want my students to take Latin, and I want them to take it from Ben and his program. I'm also very thankful for all the hundreds and thousands of students that have taken physical education from Andy Plaisted, a longtime resident here in Hamden, who should be lauded and should be recognized for what he does and the program that he runs. It's like probably no other in the state of Maine. When you think about the experiences that our students have as they come up through this physical education, I took one of the classes, cross-country skiing and phys ed, in an elementary school. Really? Snowshoeing? Studying a maple syrup? I mean, think about these things that we are getting from these teachers that should be recognized. I think about Susan O'Brien and how many students I'd love to have her take. Think about the science experience so many kids have had from taking her classes. I mean, what a teacher we have right here, and the institutional knowledge that we have right here. I think about the teachers that we have in Karen Fields, who runs a fantastic theater program at Reedsbrook. I have a daughter entering Reedsbrook next year, and I am getting selfish. I'd love for her to take part in the theater program, Karen Fields. I could go on and on for the number of teachers, and I mentioned those four because they're just at the top of my head. But as I think about all the different teachers, and some I wouldn't name because I just understand what that could mean to them. But teachers. So we have students and we have teachers. Neither one of them are actually getting the support that they need or the resources that they need as we continue to hoard money in this account, $1.6 million of which apparently is better used sitting there. The other reason, our community. Our community has great pride in what we do. Over the past couple of years, it's been tough at times as we listen to some of the things we see in the paper, some of the statements that are made. It's amazing to me the reactions that we get when our leaders of our district speak. Once again, Hamden's a part of RSU 22. RSU 22 is not a part of Hamden. And I don't make that distinction to say that Hamden's better than Winterport, Frankfort, or what have you. I'm just making the distinction because Winterport's a part of RSU 22. RSU 22 is not a part of Winterport. Right? We are part of this school district, in which I continue to read statements that I find embarrassing. We recently had a change in the discussion around special education. The only thing that came out from our group, other people made quotes about students and how it could be better for their students. Ours was, we have to study the financial impact to our district. The financial impact to our district. We are not a for-profit business here. We are a public school system that should be going for our students. And why do I continue to move on? Because I got to tell you, it's a fascinating project that I'm working on. Over the years, the expertise and the skill set that I've built when it comes to operations, when it comes to finances, when it comes to proficiency-based education, when it comes to building and executing upon standardized testing and assessments, and when it comes to coaching learners and facilitators, proctors, classroom management, how to facilitate, adult learning versus child learning. All these skill sets that I've built over the last couple of years have come in very handy. I was doing this work as a school board member, but it was not wanted. The message I get is we need to save face. We need to make sure that we look good. Well, that doesn't matter. As I continue to dig in the onion and I peel the onion part, it gets less and less in the middle. It's less solid as I go along. What I really would ask, if I can motivate anybody to do anything, is I'm not asking you to do much. But if you haven't yet taken a look at the blog that this is posted on, lowexpectationsandpubliceducation.org. And for those of you who know me, know that that name actually is for a reason. It's not a knock on public education. It's just, if you know me, you know why it's called that. But as I continue to go into this, I hope that our board members and members of the community are doing the exact same work that I'm doing. After looking through 5 years of financials, of statements, and canceled checks, and deposit slips that have to do with our VZ arrangement, it was very interesting that I found when I added up all the checks cut to RSU 22, they didn't add up to any of the numbers that were reported out to the board. It amazes me that this behavior continues to exist and it continues to move on. If anybody would like to add up the numbers that I have, I'd be more than happy to give them to you. I remember at a recent budget meeting, well, back in June, when the addition went something like this. $1.5 million minus $500,000 plus $600,000 equals $900,000. Something like that. Those of us in the audience that have some sort of background in math thought that seemed kind of odd because we all came out with a number around 1.6 million, which would have grown our unassigned fund balance, of which the assurance was, no, that is not the case. Well, sure enough, we're sitting here with $1.6 million, roughly. We will continue to work and we'll continue to drive change. We have seen some changes so far, and I think they're very positive. Hopefully that will continue. But the work is not done. When Equifax had their issue, a statement came out when their CEO was no longer their CEO. In order to gain the trust of our clients, we needed to make a change. Because unless we made a change at the top, nothing was going to change. If you look back and look at some interesting cases over the years, of which personally I'll tell you I won't put on this right here, but there are instances in where misbehavior, wrongdoing, went on for years, were reported to authorities, were reported to the officials that were supposed to be overseeing this by individuals. But it wasn't until something, some trigger, caused the downfall, whether people turned themselves in, or whether there was a stock market turn, or whether somebody changed positions and someone else came in and looked at it and said, whoa, what is happening here? And actually took the initiative to go backwards and see what the damage was. When you have a position where you have no internal controls and policies aren't being followed and procedures are not being followed, you need to go back and see what has happened. That's what we are doing, and we'll continue to do that. So thank you very much for your engagement. Thank you for your willingness to fight for our students. And I would encourage you, go back and look at it. I've posted the results of our strategic planning. I've posted the results of our most recent standardized testing, tying that back into our finances. I've also posted a look back, if you haven't seen it, the second edition of finance, the financial tutorial for VZ, where you just walk through the documents. If you have not yet seen an unapproved order, if you have not yet seen the mileage reimbursement on line paper, if you have not yet seen the document that shows ineligible and then getting at the top. And I'm going to continue until I actually find where at least two numbers on two documents match. Which yet after 3 years, and I don't know how many hours of work, it still hasn't happened. Well, thank you for joining. Hope to see you all soon, and look forward to the next post. Thank you.